Welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack Postgame, where the Jazz fall to the Clippers in Salt Lake in the last game before the All-Star break. Let's talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So this is a really good night for the Jazz because the Jazz had to lose this game. It was imperative that the Jazz lose this game. The Jazz could not win this game. Period. End of story. And so the Jazz did sit some of their regular starters, which is a really good thing. And Kyle Filipowski got a ton of time in this game. Fantastic. He's finally got some really big, significant minutes, and he had a great night, a career night for him in terms of rebounding and scoring the ball. So absolutely fabulous to see. Now, all the young guys got a ton of time tonight, and that was a situation the Jazz were in because they had to lose this game, and as a result, there were a lot of turnovers. We had a really high turnover night again. Clippers got a lot more shots on goal, and they got a lot more free throws. But still, the Jazz need to take their lumps. The young guys need to take their lumps. And considering how badly the Jazz need to lose this game, considering they won the previous game against the Lakers, and we will look at the standings at the end of this to see where where everything currently sits with the race to the bottom and the more ping pong balls. But overall, I'd say this is a really positive night other than the turnovers.
Yeah, I mean the big one was just losing the game, and it was really close when we had the big lead at the end of the third quarter into the fourth. It was worrisome that they were going to win this game because you can't win two in a row. We're fighting for the second or third worst record in the league. So that was really troublesome. I mean, I was really concerned because Hardy put Markkanen back in.
Yeah.
So he doesn't seem to really, I don't know, maybe the elevator doesn't go to the top floor because he doesn't seem to be getting it. But fortunately at the end they lost and they still played hard. You said all the young guys got to play. Well, we're going to go through the minute. There was like three that didn't. Flip, it was great to see Flip. I mean, we've seen Flip get 12 minutes, and we both think that the guy can play. We think he's one of the steals of this draft, and he looked really good tonight. Yeah, he had some tough moments. He had a couple of bad passes, but he looked really good.
Yeah, he was obviously frustrated with the whole Harden flopping thing and getting fouls. And obviously that's infuriating to anybody who watches basketball. And it's really difficult. And that's why a whole bunch, I know there's a lot of people that just won't watch Harden games anymore because of the way he plays. And obviously Flip was really frustrated throughout the game with that. And he thought he was being treated unfairly by the refs. And obviously pretty much everybody who tries to guard Harden is treated unfairly by the refs because it's a joke the way he's officiated. But anyway, obviously Johnny, Bryce, and Cody still didn't get a lot of time. But on the other hand, to elevate, if they are going to play, like we've previously discussed, if they are going to play Lowry and Collins, I mean, we want those guys to get numbers. And so they did. Those two guys played a ton of minutes in this game. So I would say that's the balancing act that he needs to do. But you're right. Even taking this game into overtime, I mean, honestly, we shouldn't be taking this game into overtime because there's a chance that you actually win the game when you do that. Mm-hmm. And the Jazz just can't win this game. They just can't put themselves in the same position that they've been in the last couple of years. And somehow this doesn't seem to be reflected in the priority list of what the coaching staff has in mind. I don't understand that part of it. It's really troubling in all honesty.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Keontae had a couple of the last-minute shots that he missed. Like, if it would have gone to somebody else, they may have made those shots where the Jazz win the game. So, I mean, when you're coming down to shots at the end where they're close to the basket, I mean, sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. In a season we want to win, we want those to go in. But if you're coming down to last minute shots to win or lose, where it's this important, it's really troublesome. But we lost. We saw Flip play, so I think we can be happy, and hopefully Ainge steps in, takes Hardy aside, and say, "Look, it's a lost season. It's a lost season. If we go back up to fifth, yeah, we could get lucky and go up to number one, but you could go down to 9 or 10, and you just don't want that to happen after the pain of this season. You want to make sure you're in the top 5. Well, it'll be the top 6. If we get the second worst record, we're guaranteed to be in the top 6. And if we're guaranteed to be in the top 6, we get an interesting player, right? Regardless, we get an interesting player that has potential for upside. Could be a bust, right? But it's an interesting player.
Yeah. It's a situation where they just can't. The Jazz are in a spot where they can't take chances. They've got to give themselves every opportunity to be in the hunt for a Cooper flag. That's the bottom line. As the way that the situation with the college players currently stacks, they've got to give themselves every opportunity to be in the hunt for Cooper flag. And it's really, it was borderline tonight, and one game could make a huge difference in the final standings. That's the reality we're in, and we can take a look at the box score tonight and see what happened. I mean, you can just look at the turnover numbers, and it's good that we actually had that many turnovers in the end, because if the Jazz don't commit all those turnovers, the Jazz win this game, in all honesty. Now, I don't want to see Isaiah Collier commit 7 turnovers, which he did tonight. He got off to a really rough start, and he committed some turnovers in the first quarter, a number of turnovers in the first quarter. And he tried to make a post pass from 30 feet away or something. That's an extraordinarily difficult pass to actually get through. He'll learn. You just can't make that pass from that distance. But if there weren't for the turnovers tonight, the Jazz would have won this game. That's the bottom line. So fortunately, they did commit 26 turnovers against the 23 assists, and the Clippers end up with a bunch more shots from the field and a bunch more free throws, and that's why they won the game. The Clippers didn't shoot very well tonight. They shot 42%, and the Jazz outshot them. Jazz shot 49%, but it was the turnovers that really did it. So thankfully, I'm not a big fan of turnovers, but thankfully they actually committed some tonight.
Yeah, and they've been so good at not turning the ball over, or at least for the Jazz. So it was troubling. It's just helped us tonight. And I remember that pass that you said with Collier. That was a very bad pass.
Yeah.
It was so easy to step around. I think it was Collins. It was so easy. And look, there was a couple of lobs too that he lobbed it. He lobbed it over Collins' head. And I was watching the Clippers announcer and say, that's a really bad pass to be able to lob it over Collins the way Collins could jump out of the gym. So he struggled. But that the interesting thing at the end, man, he had a great charge with Harden. He had a great steal where he anticipated 4 steals. The kid has something. He has this knack. He has this instinct that I don't think you can teach. So even with the 7 turnovers and the 8 assists, which we would be very critical if Keontae had that, and we should be critical for Isaiah for having that, he still had some really great flashes in this game.
Yeah. The 7 turnovers is troubling. I don't care what player does that. 7 turnovers is a lot of turnovers for anybody, and particularly the point guard, in all honesty, is probably the most likely person to commit that many turnovers because he's going to have the ball in his hands more than anybody else, as you would expect on a traditional basketball team. But Collier also, like you said, he had 4 steals. He forced that late charge from Harden. I mean, I loved it in that first half. He went right into Ben Simmons in the lane and bumped him off and got that little floater from about 10 feet. I mean, that was great. I mean, he actually bully balled Ben Simmons, who outweighs him by, 40 pounds or whatever. And I mean, that is Isaiah Collier, the little pit bull. I mean, he'll do that to everybody. So all those things are really positive. Looking at So Collier tonight had 16 points and 8 assists, but he did commit the 7 turnovers. Then he had the 4 steals and 4 rebounds. And he shot 5 for 9 from the field. Keontae, on the other hand, was 3 for 12 from the field. Yeah, a couple of those were late threes that he missed that were obviously really contested shots and really difficult attempts. And Keontae, again, tonight had a really high assist night with 9 assists and 4 turnovers. So the last couple of games, Keontae's really put up some big assist numbers, and that's a step in the right direction. And he had fewer field goal attempts too. He did take 6 free throws, so that's another 3 possessions. But the 12 shots is a better number than the 18 field goal attempts. Even with the 6 free throws, 12 shots, that's doable. The 18 or 20 shots is not doable. That's what he needs to stay away from. And the assist number is a really nice number at 9.
Yeah. He, I honestly think since he's gone to the bench and he hasn't been playing point guard as much, his assist numbers have gone up. It doesn't really make any sense, but his assist numbers have gone up. And his turnovers, notwithstanding tonight, seem to have gone down too. So he's made some progress. His shot attempts have gone down. That's good. He should not be shooting a lot. He should not be shooting a lot until he becomes an efficient player, if he becomes an efficient player. So I thought he played decent tonight. So, I think he should get his plaudits from doing that. In actually playing with Isaiah, it's a decent combination. Like it's not a winning like a championship backcourt, but it's a decent combination between. They seem to have some chemistry together. So that was good to see. So I think we have to compliment him when he has a decent game, and he did.
Yeah, and he also, even though he's still coming off the bench, he's still getting huge minutes. I mean, he played 37 minutes tonight, and a bunch of the guys played really big minutes. Lowry played 38. John Collins played 41. Filipowski, 37. Svi, 28. I mean, these are big minutes. And Isaiah Collier, 32 if you round up. Those are huge minutes. So, I mean, yeah, it may be because it was the last game before the All-Star break and they're going to be sitting out for several days. So Hardy said, well, I'll just play all these guys. I want these guys to get minutes, so I'll just play them huge minutes tonight because they're going to have several days off. And that may be the case. That probably is the case, actually. But still, I mean, for Keontae to come off the bench and play 37 minutes, that's just a massive number for somebody off the bench.
Yeah, it's like you and I thought that he was benched in part because of poor play. And I think that he was benched because there's a much better point guard. I don't think he was benched for poor play, at least not in Hardy's mind, because since he's been on the bench, he's still getting just as many minutes. And he was third most in minutes tonight or so, or close to that. So Hardy has not changed his perspective on it, notwithstanding what a lot of fans think and we think. He is not. He's getting a ton of minutes, a ton of opportunities, but he has seemed to moderate in shot attempts, et cetera, which is good. And you're right. He threw up a couple of threes at the end, which were tough shots. And so you can't hold that completely against him and his field goal percentage, right? That's not really fair. Like you take a half court shot at the end. Yeah, you're going to miss it 9 out of 10 times, but you should still take that shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Hardy obviously has nothing against giving Keontae huge minutes, and I think the reason he just wanted to change the rotation, so he took Keontae out of the lineup, and it was nothing more than that. So yeah, I think it's fairly evident at this point that that regardless of what Keontae does, he's going to play big minutes. I don't know if there's anything in Hardy's mind that kid can do to change that. And he and Clarkson seem to be the only two guys on the team that fall in that category. I'm not even sure if Lowry falls in that category. We'll see. Any other comments on the box score tonight? I like we already said, like Cody got 16 minutes and Bryce 12 minutes and Johnny 12 minutes. So none of those guys are. I mean, Bryce and Johnny actually shot the ball really well tonight too, and they didn't commit the turnovers. Between the two of them, they only had one turnover by Johnny, so that wasn't the issue. And they still didn't get time. So who knows what it is?
Yeah, there was a couple I wanted to talk about. You mentioned Flip, 8 for 12, 3 for 6 from 3-point line, 1 free throw, 10 rebounds, no blocks, but he's not a blocking player. So that was a great line, and we should applaud him for it because we all knew he could do it. He got some minutes, a lot of minutes, and he did it. I think Collins had an amazing block on Batum. It was just fantastic. It was Walker-esque, and I thought that was great to see. And then I'm going to point out one thing with Cody Williams. Last game, I think it was last game, he had 1 rebound. In this game, he had 0 rebounds. And I got to tell you, I would send Cody Williams to the G League and just let him play 35 minutes a game and push him on things that he's not doing, because we need rebounds out of a player like that. And we're not getting him right now. Now he's got a lot of things to work on. He shows flashes with some skills. We get that. It's going to be a couple of years, but the rebounds is concerning. We've had that with Royce O'Neal, not been able to rebound, like Bogey, not been able to rebound. And even though they put up good offensive numbers, you actually can't play those guys unless they contribute in rebounds. And you see our point guard getting 4 or 6 rebounds, and then somebody like Cody getting 0. It's a real troubling sign. So, I mean, I'd really like to see him kind of go play against lesser competition, really work on it, having somebody pushing him, saying, "Look, you've got to do these things," because it's a trend, and it's troubling.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about in previous broadcasts, it's really important to do the other things. So it's not just about your points. It's not just about your rebounds. And some of I mean, you can be a great defender, and that may not show up in the box score in terms of on the ball defense with your guy. But there are some other things. I mean, Cody, not only did he not have any rebounds tonight, he didn't have any assists, he had no steals, and he had no blocks. And he committed 3 turnovers. Mm-hmm. So his box score is essentially a bunch of zeros and then 3 turnovers, 4 fouls, and 2 points. That's his box score tonight. So that's obviously not a good box score. That's a lousy box score for anybody. I don't care who it is. In 16 minutes, that's just a lousy box score. There's no other way to put it. So yeah, Cody's the most likely guy on the current roster to be sent to the G League for a good reason. He just needs to, and he obviously needs to work on his body too. I mean, you look at Taylor Hendricks over on the bench, and holy cow, that guy definitely looks like he's been working out a lot.
Yeah.
And then Cody looks exactly the opposite of that. He looks like Taylor Hendricks when Taylor Hendricks was his freshman year in college.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that and setting him to the G League, and if you did a redraft, one of these redrafts, and they're not fair because sometimes the first year somebody stands out, gets Rookie of the Year, and then they don't advance at all. So it's completely not fair. But right now, if you did a draft grade, he would be an F pick. I've seen that, and you can't deny it. But the thing is, all these guys have tremendous pride. We all have tremendous pride. That's why you send him down to the G League, where he's like, wait a minute, players around me in the draft aren't in the G League, they're playing in the NBA. Well, it kind of lights a fire under you. So, I would do it. I mean, I would send him down and make him earn his way back. he's got some skills. You see it. We're all rooting for him. We don't, but it is troubling. I mean, that line, like I didn't even notice the no assists, no steals. That's not good, right? It's not good at all. Like it's okay if you have a bad shooting night, but fill out the rest of the box score. That just kind of shows no hustle, right? Rebounds are a lot of hustle. There's no hustle there, and that's we'll see. But that's I can't explain Sensabaugh either. I can't explain why he can't get any minutes at all. But Clarkson wasn't even there. He still didn't get any minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's basically stuck at the 10 to 12 minutes a game right now, and that's the way he seems to be. It's certainly a trend at this point. I hope something changes after the All-Star break. Like,
before we go off the box score, go to Norman Powell. Because Norman Powell is the guy I was thinking, where we're saying like, look, Harden doesn't have the numbers to be. Just click on Norman. Where Harden doesn't have the numbers to be an all-star, and I firmly believe that, even though Harden's a great passer. I'm not going to take that away from him. He's got instincts. But look at Powell's numbers this year. I mean, they're good. I mean, the reason that the Clippers have overperformed is a lot Powell. And the funny thing is about Powell, he's always been a better player than I think teams give him credit for. He's always been like a guy coming off the bench, like a fourth option. And he finally got the opportunity this year with like George not, being, signing as a free agent with Philadelphia, as he's had a great year. I mean, a great year. He doesn't put up a lot of assists. He doesn't put up a lot of rebounds. He criticized him for that, but his shooting has been fantastic. And I think he should have, if I were going to pick a guy on the Clippers to make the All-Star team, it would have been Powell. And I like to see. The other thing about Powell I looked at, I didn't know where he was like end of the second round drafted. So it took this guy a long while, but he's coming to his own after 12 years in the NBA, and good for him.
Yeah, he's definitely another success story out of LA, where he went to, obviously he attended college in LA. Yeah, he's obviously having a terrific year. I mean, if for those on audio only, this year in 24-25 season, I mean, he's having a career year. He's scoring 24 points a game. I mean, he dropped 40 on the Jazz tonight. He's scoring 24 points a game. He's shooting 50% from the field, 43% from three on 8 attempts per game, 82% from the line, 2.3 assists. So he's just having, I mean, this is his best year in the NBA, and obviously he's been in the NBA a long time. His first year was 2015, 2016. I mean, he's had a long NBA career, and he's actually, I mean, that's a guy that came into the league without a bunch of fanfare, and he's improved himself immensely. I mean, in college, he was just known as a insanely athletic guy who could jump 40 inches, and now look what he's turned himself into a really, really good jump shooter.
But let me give you, because you're looking at year by year, I'm going to just give you his career numbers, and this is where I feel like he's unappreciated, because ESPN just have his career. So this year he's 49.6 from the field, as you said. His career is 47.2. This year 42.6 from three. His career is 39.9. So this guy has always been able to shoot, right? But he's been traded around. Is like a fill-in in trades, like through his career. And it's never really made any sense because he's a good basketball player. Maybe it's because he never has got those other things. And this is his career year, but he's always been a good basketball player. He hasn't been appreciated. And frankly, he's not appreciated this year because they chose Harden over him. But it's good to see. I mean, I like to see these guys that work their tail off, underappreciated, and come and starts to stand out. And having Paul George go somewhere else was what was needed, and for Kawhi not to be playing. And honestly, if Kawhi comes back, and I know he's playing now, I guess sometimes. Do you think Kawhi or Powell's the better player right now. I guess
Yeah.
Kawhi adds defense and rebounding that Powell doesn't offensively. Which one is better? Powell may be better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big believer in Kawhi's defense even at this. The guy's just completely physically broken, and at one time he was an awesome defender, but his athleticism is clearly being negatively impacted by age and all the injuries he's had. So, yeah, I don't think that he can be the leader on that team moving forward. And from now or in the future, I think those days are behind him as a basketball player. I mean, he's obviously on the tail end of his career at this point. So I don't believe that if the Clippers' intention is to have him as the primary go-to guy still, and even Harden, I mean, I have more belief in Powell than either of those guys, in all honesty.
Yeah, well, I think the Clippers made a mistake by signing Kawhi
Oh
last
yeah,
year too.
yeah,
Like you should have traded him
yeah,
away, got assets, or get young guys in, build around Powell while he's 31, so you're not building around Powell, but you're using him as kind of your guy, so you're respectable. And they could still do that with Kawhi. Try to get some assets from him, but Powell's done great for this team this year. Picking up Simmons, they're going to be better because of that. Picking up who's the other guy they picked up? Bogey from Atlanta. They're that's going to help them this year. So it wouldn't shock me if they end up being a fourth or fifth seed. But the main guy is Powell, and I think and more power to him.
yeah. So
Okay.
we looked at the box score. Let's look at the tankathon, where we stand right now in the race for ping pong balls. The Jazz currently sit with three other teams for the second fewest wins in the win column at 13. So New Orleans has 13 wins, the Jazz 13 wins, Charlotte 13 wins, and the Wizards are obviously going to win this race with 9 wins. And there's no way that they're going to relinquish that. But if you look at the last 10 for each of those teams, Washington is 3-7. New Orleans is 1-9. The Jazz 3-7. Charlotte 1-9. So those other two teams that the Jazz are tied with 13 wins are clearly in much more of a lose as many games as possible mode than the Jazz currently is. And that's a problem. It's just a problem. There's no other way. I don't know what the remaining schedules of each of these teams look like. I actually should go through and look at that and see what the winning percentage of the remaining schedule is for each of these teams to see where that is and how many home versus road games they have. Obviously, the Jazz are in midst of a 9-game homestand, and so I think they still have 7 in a row before they go back on the road. And so at the end of that homestand, the Jazz actually might be right back with Toronto at 17 wins. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, Toronto has 17 wins. Their last 10, they're 4-6. And they made trades, obviously. They made the trade for Brandon Ingram to try and get better now, presumably. And they gave Brandon Ingram a big 3-year extension for, it was like $120 million. So that's a piece that hopefully helps them win some more games. But still, I mean, it's troubling. After this homestand, it's likely that the Jazz are going to be in 4th place and probably close to what the Toronto is in terms of wins.
Yeah, well, Toronto, for whatever reason, it just idiotically is trying to win this year. So I honestly don't think we're going to catch Toronto, but I think that we're going to move ahead of New Orleans and Charlotte. Miller is down; he's out for the rest of the year. And Bridges is still playing, Ball's still playing. Somebody else on their team, like, also is out for the rest of the year. But the problem is, they now realize with 30 games left, the goal is to lose as many as possible. They realize that. The problem is Will Hardy does not realize that. And the 3-7, let's face it, including tonight, we could easily be 5-5. And in a way, you would say, okay, well, we should get credit for great coaching. Well, we got players on our team. Like, we have Markkanen, we have Collins, we have Colin Sexton, we got Walker Kessler, who's already borderline star in the NBA. We got players. So yeah, the coaching's not bad. I don't want to take anything away from it, but the reason we have players that if we play them, we're going to win some basketball games. Are we a playoff team? No, but we're going to win some basketball games. That's not the goal for the last 30 games of the year. And honestly, I am very worried about it. And if I'm going to do my best guess of what's going to happen, I think we're going to end up 5th. What do you think?
It's very possible. Yeah. I mean, it's really possible. Like, and some of the, I mean, there are enough games left that the Jazz could win games and end up, I mean, I don't know what Philadelphia and Brooklyn are going to do. Those teams could drop. And you're right. I mean, unless the Jazz are fully in on actually losing games, and I know they're sitting people. They're obviously sitting people, and there's a reason why they're sitting people. They're sitting people to try and manufacture losses without just completely throwing games. But still, regardless of who plays, the Jazz have to lose. They're in a situation with the roster that they have no shot for a title unless they get that number one guy. And they have to do that. They've got to give themselves every opportunity to do that. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not convinced that I think we'll know pretty much shortly after All-Star whether there was like a team get-together during All-Star break and deciding what they were going to do. And kind of throwing down the gauntlet with Hardy and saying we have to lose pretty much every game moving forward.
Yeah, well, whoever you play, those guys have to play hard. That's their profession. They have to try to win. The issue is not trying to win with every player you have on the court. The issue is who you're putting on the court. Yeah. You put Collins and Markkanen on the court. You sat Kessler. Okay, that's great. But you put Collins and Markkanen on the court together at home, a very difficult place to play against a team that honestly hasn't been playing that well. And Kawhi wasn't there. So I don't know. That seems to me you're increasing your odds of winning that game, and that's not the goal. So like Charlotte won a game because I watched it within the last 10 games where it was like a shot at the end. Otherwise, they'd be 0-10. They had Bridges shot from the baseline three-pointer, made it after they went down. Otherwise, they'd be 0-10. So, and I'm sure when he hit it, they're like, whoa, their fans are really excited. And the owner's like, oh man, what's this guy doing? Right. So they get it. They get it. They need somebody else to go onto that team, right? To try to get a star that they can pair with the assets that they have. And unfortunately, that's what we're all doing. It's just that the other two teams are doing it better than us. How much longer do you think New Orleans is going to play Zion Williamson? Unless they're trying to increase his trade value this offseason. I bet he sits very soon.
Yeah, I would assume that, considering how many games he has sat, I think that they'll probably sit him down again. Because they're obviously playing for lottery position, so it'd be no. I mean, if they start winning games, if they continue on the trend while playing him, if they're only winning 1 out of 10 games, then they'll just keep playing him. But if they start to get a couple wins, then they're going to have to sit him. That's the bottom line. And McCollum and all the rest of those guys, they'll have to sit all those guys.
Yeah. So Murray's out for the year, so they don't have to sit him. But also, if you look at Murray's statistics, he's one of the least efficient offensive players in the whole NBA. So it may actually be hurting him hurting, and he seems like his defense has declined too since he's not with Pop anymore. So, I mean, it may not be actually hurting them to have him out, but they clearly are trying to lose. I mean, Ingram wasn't playing, but you trade him away. I don't know what they got back, but nothing that's going to help them this year. So they're going to lose, and I hope we get it, because I really go to Moore, and then to pick odds over to the edge, because we've been on this before, but I think people should keep going this to just like emphasize it, is that the bottom 3 picks have a 14% chance of the number 1 pick. Now, that's not great odds. Let's face it. You're in the bottom 3. It's no guarantee that you're getting Cooper Flagg. Like last year, Atlanta went from number 9 to number 1. So that the odds now are such that you're not guaranteed. But if you're 14 versus 12.5, the 4th pick, that's a significant increase in probability between the two to get the number 1 pick. But then the other side of it is Washington, which will be the worst record in the league this year. The worst they can do is the number 5 pick. New Orleans in the number 2 slot, the worst they can do is the number 6 pick. That's why the 2nd pick is critical. And the number 3 pick, the worst you can do is the number 7 pick, but it's only a 7% chance. So realistically, you're probably in the top 6 picks, which is good, right? I mean, if you're Washington and you end up with the number 5 pick, you're very disappointed. I mean, let's face it, you're very disappointed because you want the number 1, number 2 pick, but still, you probably walk away with a pretty good prospect out of that. And that's what you're shooting for when you have one of these bad games. So, and if people don't look at these odds, look at them, because they're very interesting how they work, and why it really does matter that you're in those bottom slots, and why all of these odds should change, because it just encourages teams to tank. And that's like a whole nother thing we've talked about multiple times, how this should not be how it works, but it is how it works. So we have to like play the game. San Antonio did. They got Castle. They got Vassell actually was a late 1st round pick.
And they got Wemby. Yeah.
So they got both Castle and Wemby playing this game, and we got to do the same. Party.
Yeah. I mean, if you get the goal has to be the one of the 3 worst, because that gives you the best chance of the number 1. Obviously, it's not a huge discrepancy. You go from 14% to 12.5% for the number 4. The number 4 worst team gets a 12.5% chance at number 1. But the 3 worst records have the same amount of odds in terms of chances for the top 4 picks. And so I think that's why you need to for sure get one of those 3 worst records. Just give yourself the best opportunity, and that's the strategy.
Well, let me do this. So I'm just 14% divided by 10.5, which is the 5th worst. No, that's not right. Let me just do that again. So 14.5 equals, 33%. So the difference in odds for the number 1 pick between the number 5 and the number 1, 2, and 3 is a 33% increase in probability to get the number 1 pick. I mean, that's huge. It doesn't look like a lot when you're like looking at like, 10.5 to 14, but it actually is huge when you're thinking about the percentage difference between the two. So the percentage difference between the two. So, I mean, look, Ainge understands this better than we do. Zanuck understands this better than we do. But so their goal is go and sit down with Hardy, explain it to him, and hopefully he somehow gets it, that we have to lose these games while developing our players and while trying to maximize the trade value of the guys that we may trade. And that's probably Larry Marketing and John Collins and Colin Sexton. So we have to sprinkle them in there and give them time, but at the same time, they all can't play at the same time.
Yeah. Yep. They got to sit games. They got to sit in the entire games and just be in street clothes. That has to be the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else tonight? Call tonight.
No, good loss. Happy good loss. It was great to see Chris Dunn too. Man, I miss Chris Dunn.
Yeah.
That guy was like the Isaiah Collier before the Isaiah Collier. So I'm very happy to see Chris playing well for Clippers, being paid. They appreciate him. And you made the comment about Taylor Hendricks. I am so happy to see Taylor on the sideline. He looks great, and I can't wait to see him play basketball again.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome having him back on the court next year. It's going to be absolutely terrific. Yeah. So really looking forward to that. And I don't know what the progress is with his injury and what the rehab and what the schedule is. I have no idea. Maybe the Jazz will release a timeline for him. Will he be able to get back in the groove of things this summer, or are we looking at next training camp, or what the timeline is for that? But whatever it is, it'll be really nice to have him back on the court, because if he's not a significant piece of the Jazz, that really hurts the Jazz. That really hurts the Jazz timeline. It really does.
Yep. Yeah, we need production out of him, but he does look great. I mean, he is jacked. So, good going, Taylor, and we look forward to seeing you back on the court.
All right. Well, we're going to call this a night, and this will be the last post-game show until after the All-Star break, but we will have some other videos, some other analysis of players and whatnot. So just tune in, and we will talk to everybody later. Have a great night, everybody.